What's up, fam? It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another video. In this episode of Hood Tales, I'll be taking it to Clayton County, Georgia, to discuss the tragic, senseless slaying of 62-year-old Kenneth Herring at the hands of 21-year-old Hannah Payne, who decided to take the law into her own hands. But before we get into this video, welcome if you're new here to our channel, and welcome back to all of our subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so and join the Tony 2 times family. Go ahead and click that notification bell to get notified every time we upload. And if you're rocking with the content, don't forget to hit that like button. Likes are absolutely free and helps our channel to grow. Also, if you'd like to help our channel grow by donating financially, please take a look at the information in the description box below. Either way you choose to support the channel, we appreciate you so much. All right, without further ado, let's jump right into it. The horrific tragedy all started on Tuesday, May 7th, 2019, just around the start of the afternoon rush hour in Clayton County. It was one of the worst traffic days around the area of Forest Parkway and Riverdale Road. At that intersection, a red Dodge Dakota, driven by 62-year-old Kenneth Herring, ran a red light, crashing into the trailer of a semi-truck, barely missing a black and pink Jeep Wrangler driven by 21-year-old at the time, Hannah Payne. Hannah pulled over and decided to call 911 to report the accident. The driver of the semi-truck was also at the scene, and a state correction officer, Terry Robinson. Mr. Herring's truck had major front end damage. It was leaking fluid and smoking pretty bad. Terry Robinson also called 911 to report the accident. While waiting for police and EMS to arrive, Terry, who is a medically trained correction officer, noticed that something was off with Mr. Herring. He seemed disoriented. Mr. Herring was pacing around his truck and asking who hit him, even though he was the one to hit the semi-truck. Terry noticed that Mr. Herring's eyes were a yellowish orange. That's when Terry called 911 back. 20 minutes had gone by since both him and Hannah had called 911. Terry was concerned for Mr. Herring. He knew something was wrong with him and he needed medical attention. Terry noticed that Mr. Herring was showing signs of diabetic shock. While on the phone with 911 explaining why he had called back, Terry saw Mr. Herring get back in his truck and drive away from the scene. He told dispatch and they asked if they were able to get his tag number. Meanwhile, Hannah was also on the phone with 911 and relayed the same scenario, that Mr. Herring, who had just caused the accident, was now leaving the scene. And Hannah was under the impression that he was inebriated and possibly going to cause another accident. Dispatch on Hannah's 911 call also asked if she was able to get a tag number. While on the phone with 911, Hannah decided to pursue Mr. Herring, telling the 911 operator what she was going to do and saying where she was as she followed Mr. Herring down the road. The 911 operator advised her not to chase Mr. Herring and to head back to the scene, and they wanted her to be safe.
Did you put it in the same number? No, but I'm catching up to him right now. Okay, no, we actually do not want you to chase him. We just want you to be safe.
Hannah told dispatch she understood, but Hannah kept pursuing Mr. Herring. She was able to get his tag number and gave it to the 911 dispatcher, as she let them know that she was still on his trail. The 911 dispatcher again told Hannah to retreat and not to follow Mr. Herring. That's when she said, "I'm sorry, but I will not follow him because he's going to cause another accident.
I'm sorry, but I'm here to tell you I'm not going to follow him. Because he is going to cause another accident. So I won't stay behind him until officers get to us. But until then, I'm not moving.
Hannah continued to chase Mr. Herring, speeding and switching lanes as she tried to keep up with him. The 911 dispatch once again told Hannah to retreat and to head back to the scene of the original accident. Instead, Hannah decided to swing her Jeep Wrangler in front of Mr. Herring's Dodge Dakota as he was in a right turning lane, cutting him off from driving any further. Mr. Herring slammed on his brakes. Hannah then jumps out of her car while still on the phone with 911, yelling and screaming at Mr. Herring to get the F out of the car. Witnesses saw Hannah approach Mr. Herring's driver's side window with her weapon drawn. The intersection where Hannah stopped Mr. Herring was pretty congested because of multiple accidents that were near the 285 exits, which were just down the road from the confrontation. Motorists pulled over to observe what was taking place. One motorist began to record the incident. Hannah is seen reaching into Mr. Herring's driver's side window. As Mr. Herring kept asking her who the F she was, like, "Lady, who are you and why are you doing this?" Hannah responded, "I'm nobody." She was still on the phone with 911 as dispatch kept repeating, "Ma'am, ma'am." Hannah and Mr. Herring got into a struggle as he sat inside of his truck. In an attempt to get away from Hannah, Mr. Herring hit the gas and his car moved forward, hitting Hannah's Wrangler. That's when Hannah fired her weapon once, striking Mr. Herring in his abdomen. One motorist called 911 to report the incident, telling dispatch that Hannah had just shot Mr. Herring. Hannah, who was still on the phone with 911, told them that Mr. Herring pulled the trigger on her weapon and shot himself. When the dispatch asked if she was okay, she said, "I'm straight, he ain't." She can also be heard telling Mr. Herring that now you need an ambulance. Multiple witnesses were at the scene, including Hannah, when officers arrived. Body cam footage showed officers ask Hannah to give them her 9mm. She calmly handed it over, and officers began to render aid to Mr. Herring. Hannah was eventually put in handcuffs and placed in the back of the police car. Officers questioned Hannah about what happened. In that body cam footage, she showed no remorse, in my opinion, and ran down the series of events as if though she did all the right things. Mr. Herring was rushed to the hospital where he passed away an hour later. The medical examiner ruled Kenneth Herring's passing a homicide. His toxicology report came back showing that Mr. Herring was completely sober during the time of this incident. So it is safe to say that he was going through a diabetic episode which caused him to be disoriented and not fully aware of what's going on. His family said he was actually on his way to the hospital. Diabetic supplies were also found in Mr. Herring's pickup truck. After hours of questioning with detectives, Hannah Payne was charged with multiple charges in connection to Mr. Herring's slaying, including malice hit, felony hit, and false imprisonment. Many people thought that Hannah's actions were motivated by skin color, which she and her family and those who supported her denied. Many others called for justice for Mr. Herring. A petition on change.org was also created in support of Hannah being held accountable. Kenneth Herring was a husband, a father of 2 adult children, and a grandfather. He was the oldest of 6 siblings, and all of his younger siblings looked up to him. He was an important part of his family's structure. His passing made a significant impact on their lives. Hannah Payne was later granted bond, and her trial was postponed multiple times. It would take 4.5 years for Hannah to go to trial. On December 6, 2023, the 5-day trial began. There were multiple witnesses called by the state. The medical examiner testified. The cell phone video of the incident was shown to the jury, along with 911 calls from Terry Robinson, Hannah Payne, and one of the witnesses who saw the incident happen between Hannah and Mr. Herring. One witness said that Hannah was the aggressor and was driving erratically through traffic, which ended with her pulling Mr. Herring over. The state also presented DNA evidence that was taken from the 9mm used in Mr. Herring's slaying, which came back with Hannah's DNA. Hannah would also take the stand in her own defense. Her defense presented photos as evidence that showed what was supposed to be marks and bruises from the altercation between her and Mr. Herring. Hannah's defense was self-defense. She attempted to deny that she was told multiple times to stop chasing Mr. Herring. She said she didn't interpret the 911 dispatcher's words that way, although she told them she understood 100%. Her defense tried to paint the picture that Hannah was being misjudged and she was only trying to do the right thing by going after Mr. Herring so he doesn't cause another accident. But in my opinion, it was pretty clear that Hannah thought she had the right to execute the law, although she was not law enforcement. She said she learned that doing the right thing could end up being the wrong thing, and she would never put herself in a position to try to help someone again. Despite her argument of self-defense, the evidence against Hannah was damning. On day 5 of the trial, the prosecution and defense gave their closing arguments. The jury deliberated for just 1 hour and 29 minutes and came back with a unanimous verdict of guilty on all 7 charges, including malice hit. Hannah Payne, now age 25, was sentenced days later on December 15, 2023, to life with the possibility of parole plus 13 years total to be served consecutively. May Kenneth Herring rest in peace. My thoughts and well wishes go out to his family and loved ones. Their testimony during sentencing about the kind of man Mr. Herring was absolutely heartwarming and heartbreaking. I know they miss him dearly. It's just so tragic that Mr. Herring had to lose his life in this way, so senseless and uncalled for. The initial accident didn't even involve Hannah Payne. He did not hit her vehicle. Mr. Herring was clearly suffering from a medical emergency, and that's why the correction officer called 911 back. Mr. Herring didn't even realize the extent of the damage to his truck. He wouldn't have gotten far. Hannah said that at the age of 18, she wanted to become a police officer, and that day, she took the law into her own hands. She tried to say that she thought the correction officer was an actual police officer, and he told her to go after him. If that was the case, which I doubt, I'm sure it was meant to get his tag number and come back to the scene, not attempt to detain him and ultimately take his life. As a matter of fact, she already gave 911 his tag number. She could have at that point went back to the scene. She took a life and, in my opinion, showed no remorse. She really thought her actions were justified, when none of it was her business to begin with. She had just gotten off work at her job as a property manager. She could have kept on her merry way without being involved. I believe she got the sentencing she deserved. Of course, Mr. Herring's family would have liked for her to receive the maximum, which was life without parole. I hope that justice has been served for them and this can bring them some peace, but unfortunately, I know it won't bring their beloved Kenneth back. Fam, tell me your thoughts on this senseless situation in the comments below. All right, fam, that's it for this episode of Hood Tales. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm out.